When it comes to Quant, being at around $75 as of right now, people like to ask me what's next. Now, I'm not going to be able to know what happens tomorrow or in 2 days from now or in 2 weeks from now. But one thing I do know though is that I'm going to stay patient and just believe in the projects that I'm a fan of. And I'm still personally dollar cost averaging once a month. But I'm not telling anyone to do anything. This is purely my perspective and this is just my opinion. However, when it comes to Quant, people like to say, well, why would you even believe in it? They asked me that question. But the reason why is because I still like the fundamentals. Did you know that Quant actually allegedly were the pioneers behind blockchain interoperability? What does that even mean, right? And they even referenced like this post where they put ISO 23516 below that. But again, basically, if we take a look at interoperability, just the concept of it is very unique in my opinion. It's like, for instance, there's many networks out there, many blockchains out there, but because a lot of them are independent of one another, they can't freely interact with each other. And in which case, if that is the case, they lack interoperability. And that's kind of like a major hindrance, right? If we think about it, because a lot of projects out there, if we really want to see them kind of develop and grow, they sometimes do need interoperability. If we take a look at within this space, projects that are focused on interoperability, we'll see something like Quant to a certain extent. We'll see something like Polkadot, which I think is the most popular. We also take a look at Cosmos, which is also very popular. And to a lesser extent, we take a look at something like Axlar, which is nowhere as popular as any of the previous projects I mentioned before, but still, it's something that's focused on that. So when it comes to Quant, allegedly being the pioneers behind blockchain interoperability and them even referencing ISO 23516, that's pretty impressive in my opinion. Not to mention, Quant even talks about QuantNet, right? Which allegedly it's the world's first interbank settlement infrastructure. Pretty impressive in my opinion. So when it comes to Quant, it's not really such a one-trick pony. I think if anything, it has multiple pathways to kind of, I guess, achieve notoriety. And not to mention, if we take a look at Quant historically, a lot of people do know it for the Overledger OS. Keep in mind, the Quant network, it's made up of the Overledger OS and the Overledger network. But the Overledger network, just to kind of simply put it, basically, it's made up of the Overledger OS users. So let's just skip that part and talk about the more exciting thing, because through the Overledger OS, something called a multi-chain application can be built, basically. What that is that it's basically an application that is built on top of multiple blockchains instead of just one. So the amazing thing about that is that what happens is a developer, let's say, does not have to be stuck building on just a singular blockchain, because that's very limiting. It's like, imagine if every time I use a t-shirt, it'd have to be the same brand with my pants and my socks and whatnot. That's very limiting, right? You know, it's like, maybe for instance, I want to use Uniqlo for the top. Maybe I want to use Levi's for the pants, right? I'm just saying, we sometimes want to mix and match. So if it's just only one thing, it's sometimes a little bit boring. It's sometimes very limiting. So again, the Overledger OS is kind of like mixing and matching, but for a different scenario, right? For in the case of the Overledger OS, a multi-chain application can be built. That's pretty awesome in my opinion. Imagine having an application that is built on top of the Stellar blockchain and also the Bitcoin blockchain. That I think is just pretty cool, because Stellar, it's really fast, but Bitcoin, you know, it's known for its security, allegedly. So yeah, I just think it's really cool. Just the concept of it, in my opinion. However, when I take a look at Quant, people like to say, but yeah, it's still at around $75 though. Who cares about this? But when it comes to Quant, what I find very surprising is that it's actually held up pretty okay compared to some other projects out there. But again, it's still not the best, but I'm just saying, Quant's around $75. Keep in mind, back in December of 2024, it was around $140. So yeah, I mean, the pullback has been around 50%, but I'm saying still other projects out there, the pullback has been like 95%, 90%, 85%, and so on. It's really like not good for a lot of other projects out there. It's not good here either, in a sense where like that's still quite a lot, but not so much in my opinion. But even despite all that though, if something is low, I can view it in two different perspectives, in my opinion. Either I can view it as a net positive or a net negative, in which case because I'm looking to dollar cost average, seeing low prices doesn't inherently make me upset or angry, because try asking Warren Buffett if he's upset when Berkshire Hathaway was dollar cost averaging into Apple stocks when it was kind of, relatively speaking, pretty low. I highly doubt he was upset. Deep down, he was probably like, wow, people are exiting out of Apple at that point. I bet he was like, wow, he couldn't believe it. Who knows? That's what I'm assuming, because take a look at how well Apple has performed ever since Berkshire Hathaway started acquiring Apple stocks. But imagine if they acquired near the top, then it's like nothing that exciting. I mean, they kind of had to ride the journey, right, to feel that it was actually a good move that they did. Low prices can be viewed as in two different perspectives, in two different lenses, I would say. Either it's a good thing or a bad thing. Some people find it as a moment to exit, but others find it as a moment to enter. So it's going to be dependent on a case-by-case basis. However, personally for me, I am dollar cost averaging once a month, like I mentioned earlier on in this video. But despite all that, though, we have to consider as well, Quant's all-time high, if we take a look at it, for instance, is around $430 almost. So clearly, again, we're around 6 times lower than that. But on the flip side as well, kind of my perspective is that if Quant never goes back there, I'm not upset, which may sound kind of bizarre, but the thing for me is that if Quant just goes to half of that, so let's just say, assuming Quant, hypothetically in a random make-believe scenario, goes back to around $210, right? We're around 3 times lower than that. I know, that may sound kind of boring, but Bitcoin is not 3 times lower than its all-time high. I'm just saying. But the thing is, $210 is not even the all-time high when it comes to Quant. It's around half of its all-time high, actually. If Bitcoin were to go to around half of its all-time high, it would actually need to go lower. That's the thing. So when it comes to Quant, it's kind of like not so down compared to where it once was, but it's still kind of. To the point where if it maybe recovers back to a certain point, it already feels like, I guess, happy for me. But we'll wait and see, right? I mean, if Quant goes back to around $200, I don't need an altcoin season anymore at that point. It's to the point where I feel like enough is enough, I guess, personally for me. It's like if someone has 10 Ferraris, does the next 2 Ferraris really matter? You know what I mean? There's already so many. It's like, again, enough is enough at times. That's my perspective. But I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But we have to consider as well, Quant has an aspect of ISO 20022. Why is that so cool? A lot of people like to mention it, but they don't really explain it. Well, it's because ISO 20022, that is being used throughout this world, right, by many financial institutions for something called inter-organizational data exchange. So, of course, a project having an aspect of that, it's pretty cool. Now, people like to say, oh, it's boring when it comes to Quant. But why, though? If having an aspect of ISO 20022 matters for Ripple, for Stellar, for something like Algorand, for instance, and many other projects, if it matters for them, why does it suddenly not matter when it comes to Quant? You know what I mean? Quant, keep in mind, it's ranked 61st in the world as of right now in terms of market cap. Within this space, of course, has around 165,000 holders. Usually projects like this, they don't get forgotten so easily in some cases, just due to the following and kind of the historical presence. So a lot of people out there like to ask me, oh, am I concerned that it's going to get forgotten about if the market were to recover? Well, I'm not concerned, because if some people are telling me that a project that's ranked like 2,831st is going to not be forgotten about, why is a project that's ranked way higher, way more fans, way more notoriety, and one that's actually ranked 61st in the world randomly going to get forgotten about? Yeah, I just don't see that. Personally, in my opinion, I just find it bizarre. Like, again, why is a project ranked like 2,000 plus gonna be remembered, but suddenly a project that's in the top 65 forgotten about? It doesn't make sense. But that's just my mindset. And people like to ask me, like, oh, why don't I believe in a microcap? Well, the thing is this, like I mentioned before, like a 400% movement or whatever, like I'm already so happy with that, in a sense where I don't even need like anything more than that, personally. Will I ever see it though? I'll wait and see, but I'm just saying, if all I care about is like around 400% or whatever, I don't need to be looking for that through microcap. For what? A lot of projects in the top 100, the top 200 and so on, like top 300 basically, a lot of them are down like 3 times, 4 times, 5 times lower than once they once were. You know, if I'm just looking for that type of movement, I don't need to be looking for that through a microcap for what? It's like, for instance, I can get water by turning on my tap, right? However, also on the flip side, I could try to climb a mountain and try to get water, you know, by like melting ice or whatever. I could probably try to do that, but for what? Me climbing a mountain to try to get water is like the equivalent of me caring about a microcap just for a hypothetical 400%. For what? You know, again, a lot of projects in the top 100, 200, 300, like a lot of them are down around 3, 4, 5 times from where they once were not too long ago. I don't need to be looking for that through microcap. I'm all about just kind of like the path of least resistance, I would presumably assume. It's just kind of to the point where, yes, I can try to get ice from a mountain, but I also have an ice maker at home. For what, right? I'm just going to take the path of least resistance. There's one on my fridge, basically. So yeah, when it comes to quant, that's just kind of my perspective as of right now. I'm still dollar cost averaging once a month, but I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But I just want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a very nice day. I'm out. Peace. Bye.